Go, go, go. Hi everyone, Jeremy here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Autopsy record, Morbidity Triumphant. This is the first new studio album in 8 years from the legendary death metal outfit Autopsy, one of many bands to come out of old school death's creative peak in the late 80s and early 90s. Also one of numerous bands from that era to make kind of a comeback in the 2010s, and they did a damn good job of it too, with a heavier and deadlier dosage of their gruesome sound on the ferocious Macabre Eternal, and also the absolutely thick and crushing Tourniquets, Hacksaws, and Graves, which was their last LP. Truth be told, Morbidity Triumphant is a pretty heavy record too for Autopsy, but the band somehow manages to pull off the brisk pacing and catchy riffage of Macabre once again, and up the ante a little bit too on the variation and extremity side, as well as even pull off a memorable hook or two. For example, maggots, maggots, maggots in the mirror, horrors on display as your demise is getting clearer. And when it comes to death metal, lyrically speaking, especially given the vocal style, you don't need to rhyme, but Autopsy goes the extra mile to make sure that they do on the track Knife Slice, Axe Chop, and it shows. Shout out to the doom metal inspired passages in this track around the midpoint too. Coming away from this record, I can't say Autopsy is reinventing the wheel on this one, that is not the case, but I do have to commend the fact they've hit a peak here in terms of writing an instantly enjoyable series of death metal ragers that are nicely varied but also don't fuck around and dole out some very memorable beatings, which I attribute to how dynamic many of these tracks are, how merciful their execution style is. Autopsy's not trying to get too romantic or torturous about it, they're just trying to pile the bodies as high as possible, which you can hear in the tight pacing of the opener, Stab the Brain, with this grim main chord progression and fluttering hammer-ons throughout numerous points in the track. Madman Chris Reifer still proves himself to be one of the rawest and wildest death metal vocalists out there. There is so much more to his repertoire than just these very guttural Cookie Monster growls. He has a whole range of raspy, horrifying screams, and occasionally indulges in these completely freakish, shouted screeds, like on Tapestry of Scars, where at one point he devolves into desperately yelling, "Fucking stabbing and stabbing!" It's a wonder how he pulls all of this insanity off while also being the drummer of the band, both of which he does especially well on the song Final Frost. From the slow dramatic intro to a super chaotic midpoint, Chris's muscular drumming propels all of it really well, and it's awesome how the band is able to sweeten the deal of this track with some righteous and melodious riffs in the second half, and then contrast that with an outro that's so distorted at points it feels like my eardrums are melting. The riffs and grooves on the Voracious one make this one a pretty hefty headbanger in the track list. Cool to hear the band once again add some sweet to the sinister with these heavy metal and hard rock guitar shreds toward the back end. The dissonant tremolo layers on Flesh Strewn Temple make this one stick out too, along with a curiously spooky guitar intro that makes it sound like we're about to enter into this really gruesome ritualistic mass murder. The lyrics detail as much, with no disgusting nuance spared. Skin by Skin I was a little iffy on as a single to this LP, especially since its introduction is so sluggish and long-winded at points, but still I do find this track to be a nicely soul-sucking display of doom-influenced death metal. Plus I like the way it does develop with some harmonious guitar leads and Chris's vocals going especially manic at points, not to mention the breakneck tempo changes here and there. And while Slaughterer of Souls may not necessarily be bringing anything super new to the track list this deep into the record rhythmically or compositionally, the band ups the intensity just enough on the tempo side, on the thickness of the riff side, the vocal side, to make it feel like they are pulling out all the stops a little bit. But Your Eyes Will Turn to Dust I found to be merely just a passable outro, though I do get that it is a daunting task to end such an unforgiving and gruesome album in a way that feels unique and significant. And I think it sort of goes there by heading in an unexpected direction for just a moment, with Autopsy dishing out some surprisingly feel-good headbanger riffs and speed metal guitar shredding. There's a brightness to it, but as quickly as this brightness arrives into the track, it kind of disappears into the murk of the second half, which just kind of makes me wonder what was the point of throwing in this very slight bit of variation in the first place if we weren't going to follow all the way through. If that had happened, that would have made this track a pretty significant finale finale for the LP instead of just a mere slight variation on much of everything we've heard so far. Still though, even with the ending not quite measuring up to where I wanted it to be, I thought this was overall a very great death metal record. One of the best I've heard this year from one of the best bands in the genre historically. And gotta say, I was happy to be proven wrong on this one, because for a while I've been kind of feeling like Autopsy, while this latest era of their career has been solid, nothing they've dropped since Macabre has really like blown me away, stood out to me in any form or fashion. I thought that record was really going to go down as the creative peak at this leg in the band's career, but no, they took that 7-year little gap and came through with something that is absolutely murderous here. I think Autopsy came through on this one with old band experience, but new band energy, and this thing sounds not just savage, but also studied as a result of it. Here and there, I'd say there are some variety issues. Maybe some of the riffage on Born in Blood is a little too typical for Autopsy at this point, but this is still an incredibly kick-ass album, feeling a light to decent 8 on this one. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Autopsy, forever.